everybody. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I am Deanna. Happy Friday night, happy cocktail night. It is great to be together again. And as you can see, we are more than together again. We have a special guest tonight. I know that's why a lot of you are logged on. We're here with Janine Brochious. Did I say that right?
Broscious,
Broscious.
like a
Okay.
breakfast
I'm still
cereal.
adding an extra syllable. So I'm
Yeah,
so sorry. I'm just
that
wanting that extra syllable. We are going to be at the library with Janine where your rugs are hanging up in an exhibit. Now, Janine, what library is it?
we are at the Newton Library in Newton. Oh, hold on a second. We're okay. We're at the Newton Library in Newton, Illinois.
Okay, great. So anybody near Newton, Illinois that will be able to get out and see the show is it's showing for a little while longer, right? It's going to be up for a little while longer.
It's up for one more week.
Whoa, okay. Well, that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm just going to run through viewers really quick and say hello to everybody.
Uh,
And then just so you know, the format when we do the split screen and we have a special guest on these Friday nights, you can ask questions. Janine can't see your questions, but I'll relay them when it's a good time. So if you have specific questions for her at the beginning, at the end, or throughout, as we're looking at the various pieces, make sure that you shout them out because I'll see them. I'll be able to ask your question, and Janine can answer them live. So I want to say happy evening, happy Friday night to Kirsten. Great to see you. Melissa in Canada. Cheryl, great to see you on Cape Cod. Linda H in Massachusetts having a nice red wine. Deborah, happy Friday evening. Um, and Deborah said, I found out yesterday that I get to do a show in 2025. I'm looking forward to coffee time tonight. This is something we should talk about because I know a lot of people are looking to do shows in historical societies, libraries, venues locally. And this is a great thing to talk about. What a great opportunity for outreach, right? To be able to
Absolutely.
get the craft out there. So we'll ask Janine specifically about how she went about doing that and sort of facilitating the whole event. And maybe we'll talk at the beginning about how logistically it works, and we'll look at what your display is like, Janine, and see what you got up there and how you got your rugs hung. Because I think one of the sort of trip up, speed bump things for people in general is how am I going to hang them? How are they going to look? Is it going to look professional? So we'll look at what Janine has in Newton, and you'll be able to ask questions and see what she's got because it's going to be a great sort of prototype too. Yours looks very, very professional. Catherine, it's great to see you. Happy cocktail night in Missouri. Linda B in New Jersey. Happy Friday. Mom, great to see you. Thanks for logging on. Ryan is in Texas. Great to see you. Oh, you are on the road tonight. Peace and love to you too. Brenda, welcome and great to see you. Joy, great to see you. Barbara, great to see you. I will be checking the thread as we go along tonight, but I also want to get started. So, Janine, let's start with a little bit of a conversation about you and set up the story a little bit before we move over to the rugs. So,
Okay.
and I'm going to also say if anybody can see anything technical that's going wrong that we might be able to fix on our end with a two-person screen, it doesn't just double the chance of trouble. I think it like quadruples it. Wendy, happy cocktail night. So, Janine, you are in Newton at the library at your show. We're going to be looking at how many rugs are hanging up tonight.
Oh, that's a good question.
Eight,
Six, eight.
eight,
8.
12,
No, more than that. He's counting them.
15, 17.
17 rugs.
That's a lot. So there are 17 rugs hanging up. Now, let's just talk about logistically how it worked because people are interested in doing things like this. And it is a great idea, isn't it, to get your rugs out in front of people?
Absolutely, yes. I was so thrilled to be asked. Actually, what happened is my sweet daughter, we're here visiting my son and his family,
Mm-hmm.
and my sweet daughter-in-law just went and asked her library if we could do this display. They often have quilts up or other artwork, and she just thought to ask, and they said yes because they didn't have any displays up at the moment.
That was
That's
very
how,
lucky. That was very
yeah,
lucky because sometimes the libraries are quite busy, and there is like Deborah is saying she's on the roster for 2025. It seems so far away, but some of the libraries are booked up. So if this
right.
seems interesting, it is a good thing to get on the calendar, isn't it? It sounds like you were very lucky because it's a beautiful library and it's a big display.
Yeah, it was definitely lucky, and when she suggested it, I thought, well, this isn't going to happen, but then it did. So we were really pleased to. And this area, they're not familiar with rug hooking. So this has been a really neat opportunity to spread rug hooking to some people that have never even heard of it before.
That's so interesting because, like you're saying, they've had quilt displays there, but not rug hooking. We hear that
Right.
so often, right?
Yes. Yes.
Interesting. Now tell us a little bit about your background. You don't have to get into all of it now because we can kind of stretch it out as the night goes. But you have a very sort of very appealing lifestyle. It appeals to me as you know. I've still got two young kids and I'm anchored to home. Tell us a little bit about your lifestyle because it also feeds into questions about where you get your inspiration from, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I homeschooled our kids for 20 years. So I was home for 20 years with our children. And our last one left. And about the same time, my husband, Matt, started working from home. He works for IBM, and his project was all work from home. So I was kind of like at a midlife crisis, I think. Didn't know what to do with myself with my kids gone. And also, winter is never a good time for me, the cold.
Yeah.
I don't feel well. And I said, well, if you can work from home, does that mean you can work from anywhere? So we took the camper we had at the time, which was a little pop up that didn't have any air conditioning and no bathroom, and took it down to Florida and stayed in this RV park with all these huge, beautiful rigs. It was quite amusing, actually. And that's how we got started. Um, but then after that, we found we really, really liked it, and I really wanted a bathroom. So we bought a nicer camper and started to travel more and more. In fact, we had a home in Maryland. We had lived there for 23 years and raised our boys there. And it got so more and more we were away from our house than we were at our house. And it didn't make sense to keep the house. So we sold the house and went full time on the road.
That is exciting. And was it a scary decision or you were just at a place where you already kind of got your feet wet and you thought, let's just go full hog with this. Let's just
Oh,
do it.
yeah, a little bit of both. I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty scary to think we don't have a home base,
Yeah.
but we had actually RV'd some in advance, so we kind of knew what we were getting into. Whereas some people that go full time, I know they just jump right in and do it, and they've never even camped or RV'd before. And to me, that would be super scary.
Yeah.
But we had done it like the two previous years before we went full time. We were 6 months out of each of those years away from our house. And then we'd get back to the house, and I didn't know what to do with myself because I didn't have a job. I couldn't volunteer because I knew we would leave again soon. And I just didn't like the house either without our kids there. So we got rid of it.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. It does. It sounds like it was the right time to make, you were at that crossroads and it was the right time to make a decision like that. I bet that you are like most of us rug hookers, we are traditional in a lot of ways because that's I think in a large part why we're drawn to the craft. But you are having like a great sort of travel seat of the pants kind of a life and you've managed to put both of those things together. It's very unusual. It's very
Yes, and it's a little challenging. We have three sons. One is in
Mhm.
Maryland, one is here in Illinois, and one is in California. And so we just travel the country visiting with them. And we've been to, well, we didn't go with our RV to Hawaii, but we've been to 49 states now. All we
Mm.
have left is Alaska. So we've had a lot of really cool adventures.
Whoa.
And it is
Oh,
challenging to do the rug hooking on the road because everybody says, well, where do you have your wool stash?
yeah.
Well, I don't have that much of a wool stash, but it has grown some. And there's a closet in the RV that's supposed to be for washer and dryer. And in my mind, clean clothes are optional, but I've got to do my rug hooking. So we don't have a washer and dryer. And it's filled with rug hooking supplies and other art supplies.
I think everybody on this show right now identifies with that perfectly. That makes perfect sense to everybody. And if the clothes get dirty enough, then you would just have to cut them up and use them anyway.
Well, there's a good idea. I'm gonna have to call next time I can't find a laundromat.
It's a bit diabolical, but it's a good approach. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, that answers my question about supplies because, and it also makes the great point that you don't need tons of everything to be able to make beautiful work, right? You figure
Absolutely.
out what you need and you have what you need by the sound of it.
Well, and I think it fuels my creativity because a lot of times I don't have exactly what I need, and we're in a part of the country where I can't get rug hooking supplies, and we're not anywhere long enough for me to get the mail either.
Yeah.
And so I have to get creative, and I think that has actually helped my rugs look better.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because it's like a forced challenge. Right.
Exactly.
When you're out of your comfort zone, you often get your best work done, and it is a little bit uncomfortable. But you're probably used to that feeling by now. And you've
Yeah.
probably become a great problem solver.
Well, I never thought of it that way, but I guess so.
I think you must have. I mean, I'm just picturing the way most people work with like just huge heaps of stuff that they might or might not ever use, but are in hoarding mode. It's a scrap craft after all. But yeah, you must have to be selective about what you take and make good decisions about what you use. When we look at the rugs, we'll look at decisions you've made, and maybe you can show us times when you felt like this. I was looking for something else, but this is what I got. You get what you get, and you don't get upset, and it came out great because that's very enabling, I think, for people to know that you can be flexible in the way that you work, even if you are a more technical person. Would you say that you're a more technical rug hooker?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by technical, but I'm in general not a very technical person.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to see the rugs. I just want to let you know Brenda logged on and said, my mom, Gail from Sun and Fun Days in Florida, says hello to Janine.
Oh, that's wonderful. Hi, Brett Gail.
There's a buddy. So, should we? I have a lot of questions for you, but should we look at the pieces and then we'll come up with some questions as we go along? Or did you want to tell us anything else before we start walking?
Um, well, I just wanted to say, as far as not having the supplies necessarily, one thing I enjoy doing as we travel is that I'll buy supplies as I go when I can, and a lot of that is yarn. So I
Ooh,
mix yarn and wool in a lot of the pieces. Um,
ooh,
and then also I collect small pieces, like maybe just fat quarters
yeah.
of wool, and I don't know. I think I've bought a half a yard or a yard of material maybe twice, and I mix. I like to mix, and you'll see that in my rugs. Is that a big thing? Is that I just mix a lot of stuff together.
That is a great tip, and that's also very enabling. So people who are new, I got a couple of these emails today. Total beginners, do I have to use all wool? And I never get tired of saying no. You don't have to. You can use whatever you want, right? Because it's the right answer, and I think it brings more people to the craft. Now, when you're traveling, do you have a destination? You know where you're headed. What gives you the idea for your next project?
Well, I tend to do like a couple of different styles. I think I like to do where I just doodle something simply and hook that, and often they're nature related. But then I have always loved photography. In fact, I've always had some sort of art or craft going on, and photography has been a love of mine since I was probably 10 years old when they gave me my first little, I can't, 110 camera, I think it was. And I take a lot of photos, and I love the challenge of trying to get a good photo. So I use my photos in, I don't remember what your question was. Hopefully I'm answering
Oh
it, but
yeah.
I use my photos in my work, and I like to try to capture. Most of them have a lot of memories. So almost every one of my rugs has a lot of stories behind, a story behind it.
Yeah, I've noticed with the pieces of yours that I see, they're all exquisite and they do seem like they're heavy storytelling pieces. Those
Yeah.
are my favorites. It works as kind of a memoir or a scrapbook, and for you also like a travel journal as you
Yes.
go along. You must occasionally see something that's just like, whoa, I need to do this moment.
Yes, I also do a lot of journaling, art journaling. So I keep these sketchbooks, and I do a lot of painting and sketching. They're not very good, but they're enough to kind of capture it and give me ideas of what to do on the rugs as well. And I brought a couple examples of where I started with a sketchbook and then ended up with the rug,
Oh,
if
that's
you're
great.
interested in that as well.
I'm definitely interested in that. Have you always been creative and liked to do arts, crafts, drawing?
Always, but I felt stilted and like I couldn't do it. I don't
Okay.
know. I remember when I was probably in third grade, they had us do this mold where we made a plaster mold of a shell, and then we were supposed to paint it. And I've always loved orange. I don't know why, but orange is like my favorite color. It's just so happy and cheerful.
It is.
So I painted the shell orange and the outside blue. And the teacher said to me, "Oh, you should never put orange and blue together." And I've had some other things happen to me that like that. I'm the youngest of five,
Ooh.
four older brothers, and they're all creative. My dad is super creative. So as the youngest in the family, I always felt like I just couldn't do art because, my stuff looked terrible compared to theirs.
Ah.
So I think I just didn't try it, but I did a lot of photography, and I did a lot of fiber arts, as in crochet and knitting and sewing. I loved crewel work, but they
Yeah.
were all somebody else's patterns, and or patterns, I guess is the word I want, or kits. And I never felt like I could design my own until I got to rug hooking, and that just opened everything up for me. And I just went, crazy with it, and now I'm designing my own stuff. So
So I have to ask you, when you were homeschooling, did you do stuff with art with your boys?
well, and that was another thing that I forgot to mention that really showed me that I liked art and I
Hmm.
could actually do it, because I had to teach the 8 subjects to the kids, and one of them was art. And I found out, wow, I taught them. I got a book called Watercolor for the Artistically Challenged, and we worked through that book, and I found out, wow, I can do this, and I'm really enjoying it. So I've done a little bit of art and painting ever since then. But again, it was always doing somebody else's project and feeling like I couldn't design my own. In fact, I was doing some embroidery. This was shortly before I got into rug hooking, and I remember posting on Facebook, I just wish I could design my own thing. And a neighbor up the street, she happened to be on Facebook at the same time, and she's like, "Janine, just get the backing out and draw something on it,
Hmm.
and do the embroidery." And I'm like, wow, it's that simple. So, and they were just doodles, but it looked really cool when it was embroidered. So that was another step into my creativity, and thinking I could do my own thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so lucky that you had that conversation at that time because it sounds like the blue and orange shell did a lot of damage. It
It's
doesn't
still in
take
my
many of
memory.
those.
Yeah, it's still in my memory, and I don't have many memories from that time period, but that really like did something in my psyche, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would. It's very discouraging to get negative feedback when you're young, and you're
Right.
doing something that just feels right. And certainly Van Gogh did a lot of orange and blue, so she wasn't even right on that. But yeah, that's
Well, and I
sad.
can't imagine why she did that. I mean,
Yeah,
why tell a kid you can't put certain colors together? But
yeah.
it did.
It was very bad advice, and but everything maybe happens for a reason. Um,
Right.
and then when your friend told you this, you were working on an embroidery project, and then
Yeah.
was it soon after that you started thinking about rug hooking?
Yes, I actually went. I love going to art and craft shows,
Mm.
and there was a beautiful one in Frederick, a juried one, and there was a woman there selling her rugs, and I had seen hooked rugs a couple times, and I thought they were so beautiful.
Mm.
Most of them were very primitive,
Yeah.
and I thought they were so beautiful. And of course, I could not afford the rugs. Excuse me. But she was there demonstrating,
Mm.
and she said, "Well, do you want to try it?" And so I was like, "Yes, I want to try it." So I sat down and tried pulling some loops, and I thought, well, this seems pretty
Hmm.
simple, and I really wanted to do it. She had a very small kit, and I bought that kit, and turns out she is Caroline Twig, which I know a lot of people will recognize her as a teacher, and she's very sweet. She helped me get started, and then I immediately wanted to design my own thing. So I can show you my first rug
Oh,
that
that
I
was my
designed.
next question. Oh, you're kidding. That was your first one. Happy
That
campers.
was my first rug that I designed, and it's been on the floor in our camper in front of the kitchen sink for well, nine years now, and
Whoa.
holding up great.
Whoa, it is holding up great.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
had all
so
kinds
funny.
of
You
stuff.
jumped right in.
I did, and I love to learn by reading, so I got every book the library had about rug hooking, which I think was two books. And I read the books, and they said that you should always have more than one wool. That I mixed several greens together. I think it was three. I went with three for everything.
Ooh.
I mixed three greens, and I said I had to. I wanted bright yellow for the sun,
Mhm.
but she didn't have anything bright. So you can see I got the wool from her, and it was all very primitive. And I like bright colors, so I had to branch out shortly after that and find the bright colors. But this was my first rug
That's a
that I designed.
great start. And you must have felt great when you did that.
Oh, absolutely. It was just such a thrill. I can show you the next one too if you
Yeah,
want.
please.
This one,
Oh, wow.
can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit to the right, but God, that is gorgeous.
This one I did a quick doodle of a butterfly with these flowers, and I was so new to rug hooking, and I only had the size 8 cut
Hmm.
at this point, and I didn't know if it would work. So I put it up on a Facebook, my drawing up on a Facebook page, and said, "Would this even work as a rug?" I had no clue if it would work, and several people said, "Oh yes, absolutely. Will you sell this pattern?" So I had designed and sold my jewelry and had a website for several years. And so I immediately said, "Oh, yes, of course." So then I had to figure out how to sell patterns. And has been my best selling pattern even to this date.
Great. Now, this is the perfect time. Tell everybody your website so they can go, because you've got a lot of comments that's very pretty, and your text in the last rug was very even. You've got some fans here. So give a shout out for your website.
It's an Etsy site,
Yep.
and it's just Janine Brochious.
Hmm.
So if you know how to spell my name,
Yep.
which is
It's in the show, so they can go. You can go right there after the show and
okay.
check it out. So
Yeah.
do you sell the patterns on backing?
Yes, most of them I have listed on linen. I
Hmm.
only have linen with me because I can't carry a lot of different kind of backings in a camper with limited space. Um, I got to put this down. My arms are getting tired. But but I have some that are downloadable PDFs as well, and I have I don't even know how many up there, maybe 10, because this is another one that I have online.
Oh, wow.
But
That is
a lot of them now
lovely.
that I make are so personal that I haven't been putting them up as patterns to sell, but there's quite a few up there.
Yeah, that's like this one's like a mandala.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is so electric. It's energized and it's so pretty. So
Well, it
nice and
was brighter. Look at how much it's faded. Can you see how much
oh
brighter it
my
is?
gosh. Well, it's still very bright, but it has faded.
Yes,
Isn't
it's
that
just
funny?
really faded. So I'm not quite sure why, but I
The
still
Huh.
like.
sunlight coming in the door because it's up on that
Yeah,
landing.
Matt thinks it's
Oh, the
light,
sun's
but
hitting it.
some of the color leached out. I put a non-slip pad on the floor before I put this on, and some of the color leached onto that pad.
Oh, you're
So
kidding.
yeah,
One of those like mesh pads with the holes
yeah,
like window pane. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's still absolutely gorgeous. It's just mellowed a little bit. Just a
yeah,
little bit.
and mellowed is okay.
Yeah, mellowed is okay. Now, how would you describe your style?
Well, it's definitely evolved as I've learned more. Like
Yeah.
I was in the beginning, just well, I didn't have much wool to work with, and then you end up with more pieces, and you end up with a lot of cut worms,
Yeah.
and that has definitely changed my style because I keep trying to use them up. And in fact, let me get this. I'm back. I I teach classes trying to teach my style, which is trying to use up all the worms that you have. So I have three different landscapes that people can choose from, and the goal of the class is for them to bring their worms and learn how to do a landscape by just throwing all kinds of greens in the green area and all kinds of blue in the blue area. So
That's
that's
a
kind of
great idea. And that's the third one.
this is the third one.
That's a great idea because you have become a master of mixing colors and using what you have. Right?
Well,
That
thank you.
put
That's my goal,
oh
to just
yeah.
put up and be free.
I think that, that is, it's so interesting because your style of working and now the extension, your style of teaching, really is a product of your lifestyle and the way that you have to work. Having a small working space and a small supply cupboard, you have learned to thrive in that situation. And that's a great thing to pass on because whether or not people have huge, vast houses or RVs, it's great to be able to make the most out of the supplies that you've got. So that's a
Right.
really interesting approach.
Yeah, that's my goal, to free people up. They often think they have to go out and buy
Yeah,
all the wool for each project,
yeah.
and then they have a ton left over and they don't know what to do with it. And my goal is to kind of free them up from that a little bit and help them to see that they can just start mixing things together and create something beautiful.
I think that's so interesting. That's a really good message. I think people do get this. It's such an elite craft to begin with. It's so expensive at the
Right.
approach, right? It doesn't have to be, but the message has been for so long that you
Mm-hmm.
need a certain cutter and you need a certain frame and you need all these things. And it's so prohibitive to so many people who are
Right.
approaching and you just want to get your feet wet. You don't necessarily want to mortgage the house. So it's a
Right.
great approach to think about things in terms of being at peace with using limited colors and limited supplies, or challenging yourself the way that you always do to say, well, this is what I've got. This is what I'm trying to do. It might be a square peg in a circle hole, but it's going to work, right? And
Right.
your work is proof of the fact it does work.
And I always say that the fibers just seem magical.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's not going to work, and in fact, I'll be hooking something, and I like the one element I have in my rug, and I hook the next one, and I'm always like, "Oh, I just ruined the rug." And my husband Matt has to say, "Just calm down. You do this every time. Just keep going."
But
And
I bet you often find that when you stand back and wait or hook around it, that it might be okay after all.
absolutely,
Yeah,
you just have to. I think it takes a while for my brain to catch up and
yeah.
think, okay, that's okay if that one's in there now too.
Yeah, it is. It's everything in life is about coming to peace with things, right? Like bit by bit, no matter whether it's your craft or it's your bigger life or whatever it is. There's always pieces that stick out or don't quite fit, and usually, you fight against them. You get angry. You take them out. You can take them out when you're a rug hooker. But at the end of the day, most people who are grown ups figure out a way to be at peace with the things that are a little bit different or not exactly perfect. And,
Right.
and certainly this is the right craft for not being perfect, right? I mean, it's the thrift craft. It's about expression, creativity, color, scraps. It's
Right.
not about perfection. And yeah, if you
I,
strive
I
for that,
and I feel like sometimes, because it is easy to pull out things and start, a different color or a different, change it. It can stilt people too, and if we can just leave it for a while and
yeah,
keep going,
yeah.
I think a lot of times it's just we got to let our brains catch up and be okay with it.
That's a great way to put it. Just letting your brain catch up with what your hands are doing.
Yeah.
That's a great approach. People are asking your classes that you teach. Are they live classes or is it like a recorded class?
No, they're at events. I've been asked to
Oh,
teach,
yep.
at several different things. In fact, I'll be teaching it at the biennial in Texas this year,
Okay.
and then in Virginia again in the fall. And I'm doing about two or three teaching things a year. So if somebody's interested, they could email me or send me a Facebook message, and if their guild is interested in having me.
That's great. So you all caught that. I'm just going to repeat it. Janine is saying, if your guild is looking for a speaker, be in touch, right? Get in touch with Janine through the Etsy store. And that would maybe be something that's possible, something that could at least be figured out. I think that's great. It sounds like your style of working and teaching is very different. And I'm ashamed to say, I don't know, have you done a book?
I have not done a book. I've written, I think, over 10 articles for Rug Hooking Magazine, and they did ask me to write a book,
Yeah.
but it just didn't, the timing wasn't right with
Yeah.
all our traveling, fitting everything in. I didn't say, but since Matt is working full time and we want to have our weekends open to explore, I actually drive the rig while he sits in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
So between driving and trying to get some hooking in and exploring, I just couldn't fit in writing a book, but I would like to at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems so, your body of work, and we're going to see it, is so specific. It's when something of yours pops up, it's really clear that it's yours. And that's just, I mean, it means that you're amazing. But you have a signature look. And now that we're having this conversation, I'm wondering how much of that is the color and the construction. I mean, certainly your drawing, I'm getting real familiar with your drawing, your style. But I'm wondering how much of it is your color and technique, because there is a magic quality to the way that you assemble your pieces. And I think you've described exactly your way of working and how it comes together. I think that probably is that special quality. It's very elusive, that you don't see in other rugs. It's just such a great gift to have something special about your work, whether it is just all your own luck, imagination, whatever, or circumstances, the way that you've learned to work because of the way that you live and the time that you have or the space that you have. It's just a great lesson, I think, for everybody, that no matter what, because people we make so many excuses, don't we, for everything. And particularly, I think women are so apologetic when they take time out of life to do something that's just for fun or just for yourself. And sometimes you just are filled with excuses of why. Oh, I can't do it because I don't have enough stuff. I can't do it because I'm not a good enough artist. I can't do it because my rugs don't look as good as other people's. And your message seems to be very enabling. Like, you just do it, and then you give it the hot minute and wait and look when there's something you don't like and return and make allowances and changes. And it seems like you work in a very flexible style.
Yeah, I guess so. I've never liked being told what to do, I guess. So I just want to do my own thing, and if nobody else likes it, I don't care. And it's just, I think it is really important for everybody to be creative in some way. And unfortunately, all those outside voices and the voices in our heads is always telling us that we're not creative, or we're not as creative as this person, or we don't make good stuff. And I think it's important just to do it.
Yeah.
And the more we do it, the better we'll become. But it's just, we just need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say, Mark just said you have your blogs.
Yes, I do have a blog. I haven't written lately. Again, there's only so much time, but I like to write about our adventures and also my rugs in the blog, and that's joyfulwonder.wordpress.com.
Joyfulwonder.wordpress.com.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. Do you feel like you don't put a lot of pressure on yourself when you're working on projects, right? You do things according to how you're feeling and inspiration and how time allows.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Now, I've had a little more pressure, like if I know I have to have an article ready for the magazine,
Oh, yeah.
or like this one was a little bit of pressure, but then I just had to take a deep breath and go for it, because I was teaching last May in New York. I was their featured speaker, and then I taught a 3-day class. And at first they said they wanted a butterfly class, and I think just a couple months before the class, they changed their mind and said, could you do like a vineyard piece? Because we have a lot of vineyards around here. I'm like, okay. So,
Turning on a dime.
Show you my artwork.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here it is. So I just drew something.
Oh my gosh, that's very close.
Yeah.
You are very good.
Well, I never thought I was, and in the beginning, I wasn't. You just have to keep doing it, and I could pick this apart. And in fact, it's right after I make something, I usually don't like it, and then I come back a month later, and I'm like, well, that's just awesome. I don't know what my problem was before. So,
And don't you find that when you translate something from an image, whether it's a line drawing or a watercolor to rug hooking, that the hooking is so forgiving?
absolutely,
Yeah. And
yeah.
until you start it, people don't believe that. They just think of it as this elaborate tapestry that has like all of this, all these nuances. But yeah, I mean, it's so much more forgiving than just a white page, right, in a sketchbook. That's
Oh,
intimidating.
absolutely.
Now, when you look at the sketch that you've done, like the vineyard, do you then just draw it, or do you do like a transfer process?
What did I do with that one? I have several different processes. I tend to take a picture or scan it into my computer, and then I will use Procreate on my iPad and trace over things and make my pattern that way and print it out and transfer it to the linen.
That's amazing. Did you want to show us any other paintings?
Yeah,
Oh,
well, some of them, let's see.
that one is just such a standout. It's
I
so
think
nice to see the source that you're working from. It's so nice to see the, I mean, that you never get to see that with people's work. That is really a gift. Brenda's asking,
well,
do you rework sections that you have hooked?
there are times I do, but it's amazing now that I've done it this long. I just seem to intuitively do it the first time. But
Bass Harbor Kiss.
oh yeah, I think we need to start looking at some of
Yes, let's look at them. I
the
know the
other.
rug, I know the rug that you're talking about too. That's such a beauty.
Yeah, yeah,
Karen is saying a calendar of your artwork would be fantastic.
oh, is that Karen Mitchell?
Yes, it is.
He's mentioned that before. Uh, but this one is, I call it Bass Harbor Kiss. And this one was from a photograph of Matt and me at in Maine at Bass Harbor.
Yep.
And I'm very particular about my photos, so I stood at just the right spot and was taking pictures of Matt, and then somebody else came along and I said, would you take a picture of both of us together? And so I said, but you have to stand right here. And so he did, and he took a picture, and then I said, wait, take one more, and I leaned over and gave Matt a kiss, and it became
Oh,
one of my favorite
it,
photos.
it's
So,
so beautiful, this one. It's so beautiful.
But you had to rework the faces
oh
forever.
yeah, this
Yeah.
one he said I had to rework. Well, I it was fairly early on in my rug hooking career, and I bit off a little more than I could chew, and so I would start something and then put it in the closet, and start something and put it in the closet. And finally, Matt was like, "Are you ever going to finish Bass Harbor Kiss?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll try again." And I
Oh,
did. Those faces are so tiny you can see it next to my hand.
yeah.
And
Would you use like all the same cut with something like that?
boy, my necklace is sending
Shimmers.
shimmers out. I don't know if you can see that. Um, let's see. I think the face, being that small, is mostly three. I do have like the neck
Oh,
is just whatever cut I had. It's larger. The hair is bigger, so I will mix whatever cut will fit. In fact, I try to use the largest cut I can in a piece usually.
yeah. That makes sense because you get such good sort of feel for direction, right? You get better directional hooking with the larger cut. Do you cut? Do you cut with a cutter?
Yes, I do
Yeah.
that with a cutter. I have a beeline cutter,
Yeah.
and I have everything from a 3 to an 8.
Okay.
And I wanted to do. I got an 8.5. Wanted to do a wider cut, but I have issues with my wrist, and I can only do it for so long, and then I've got to stop. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And just to get the technical questions out of the way, do you use a specific hook or do you switch between different
I
kinds?
use a Hartman hook. I
Yep.
think it's the 5 millimeter Hartman hook that's bent,
Yep.
and again, the bent helps my wrist.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. That sounds like it would be a good call. God, that
Yeah.
is such a pretty piece, and I'm guessing because Linda said you two in Maine, fantastic. I was going to say where is it? Bass Harbor, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it is Maine.
Yeah.
Oh, that is just gorgeous. I mean,
Thank
you've
you.
captured the light. I'm just looking at the pieces that I can see, and the one below we're not there yet, but I'm seeing
This,
very graphic work. Yep, more like the
yeah,
mandala, and then very realistic work. It kind of runs the whole gamut, doesn't it?
right. This one was pivotal, I think, in my rug hooking career because up to this point, I was pretty much a beginner and I would buy wool for each piece. And then I started having all these worms and wanted to use them up. And I'd heard about scrappy rugs. So I call this my funky scrappy.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'm just going to doodle some stuff and use them up. And I couldn't believe how it looked when I started putting different greens together, just threw in every yellow I had,
Yeah.
and just mixed it up. And that has informed my style ever since.
That's so interesting because this is like the sort of groundbreaker or the breakthrough rug where you do it to use stuff up, and then the result is you have your style evolves hugely in one
Exactly.
rug. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
incredible. Because Linda's saying your shading skills are so good, inspiring her, I think, to try again with that kind of thing. But it does seem to be your like the realistic Bass Harbor and this one, it seems like you are using similar techniques. It's just a very different theme, obviously a different approach, different subject altogether.
Right. Right. Like in the rocks,
Yeah.
I had all these worms of different grays and browns and cream colors, and I put them all together. Called them my rock wool. And I did pay attention to the photo where there were shadows and light areas, but otherwise I just mixed all kinds of fibers in there.
It creates such richness and depth. It's very magical. It's not
Well,
something that you can copy or repeat, I bet.
no, I think every one of my rocks is always different. But I also love textured wool. I
Hmm.
feel like that creates a lot of depth, especially in the landscape,
Yeah.
that I just haven't been able to get with, wool that's been plain and dyed.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess for you, I didn't think about it, but because you're using the closet space, that it's just as important to use up stuff so you don't have a lot of extra stuff kicking around as it is to acquire things that are pretty close to what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Kirsten is saying such a fabulous rug, story, emotion, color, technique all together. It That's a great point. I think rugs that are I mean this one I consider to be an iconic rug. I've seen it on Facebook. Every time I see it, I stop what I'm doing. I love seeing it no matter how many times because I think it I think Kirsten hit the nail on the head. It is about the storytelling, it's about the emotion. It's also beautiful to look at. It's got things happening on a lot of levels. There's lots of facets to that rug, and I think that is what makes a very memorable rug. I love the scrappy rug under it as well. I think it's filled with interest, color, right? It's just a really graphic, fun, a high energy rug. It's very different, and the butterfly is different yet, right?
Yes,
It's more. Yep.
this one is a mixture. I used mostly wool in here, although the white is cotton yarn that I would use to make dish rags and had some left over. And this is a lot of yarn in the background.
Okay.
Yarn, yeah, mostly yarn.
Wow. Gosh, that
You
is
mixed the
gorgeous.
orange and blue in there too.
Yeah.
What else is in there?
Butterfly has orange and blue.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, the orange and the blue. Gosh, that's a great point to make. Now, I love the way the leaves look here because the butterfly is done in a very realistic manner, but the leaves are done in sort of more of a hit or miss fill.
Yes, and I like to do that where I'll have some elements very realistic and others not as realistic.
Yeah. And do you always do your bindings whipping like that? Is
I
that your
do.
favorite? Yep.
And I actually have a YouTube video on how to bind with the whipping, and lots
Great.
of people have watched that. But it seems like it's easiest for me, and it's what I learned at first, and I just like it, so I keep doing it.
Yeah, what works. It looks beautiful. It's like a frame on all of your pieces.
Yeah, well,
Now,
that's how I look at it as a frame. You were
yeah,
talking about emotional rugs, and I got to talk about the two up here. This one was my response to COVID. When COVID first started, we were in Florida,
Uh-huh.
and everybody was leaving to go to their home. And, we were supposed to stay in, and well, we didn't have a home to go to. So it was pretty scary
Yeah.
and upsetting. And I was reading in the Bible in Matthew 6, right, hon? I think it's Matthew 6, where God says he takes care of the birds and the flowers, and he knows what we need, and he'll take care of us.
Oh.
So this says, your Father knows, and it shows the birds and the flowers, and it
Oh.
says, don't worry. And you would not believe how comforting this piece has been to me, not only through COVID,
Yeah.
but I always have it on a wall in the camper where I can see it. And anytime I start getting upset or worried about something, I look at that and I take a deep breath and think,
Yeah.
God knows, and I can trust him, and it'll be okay.
That is fantastic. It was just it popped into your head, right? You were reading, that was the inspiration. You needed to hear this at that moment. It was the right
Absolutely.
sentiment at the right time, and it's brought you through ever since.
Yeah, it's brought me, it's just been very comforting.
God, it really is a gorgeous rug. I love the colors of the birds and the flowers, a
Oh,
beautiful hit or miss
we got orange and
background.
blue together again.
And the birds are singing. I mean, it's so charming, it's sweet, and it is very calming to look at. And of course, that the this I love the way you did the text. It's embedded a little bit. It's not like hit you in the face. It's like your eyes find it, and it's like a secret message that's just for you. It's
That's right.
really,
Yeah, you have to kind of look at it closely, and then they're like, wait, there's something there.
yeah, and it's such a positive, good message. It's a great eternal message. Is this one of the patterns that's in your Etsy store?
Yes, it is actually.
Yeah, this would be a great one. I can see a lot of people wanting to look at that often and get the same kind of strength from it.
Yeah,
That's a beautiful piece of storytelling, and we all remember that moment in time and feeling so lost and scared. And
right.
yeah, it's nice to look at that rug and know that that's something that helped you get over that feeling.
Yeah, very comforting.
And
Now this
speaking of
book,
scary feelings,
yeah, this book was kind of a cathartic thing that I just had to do. I guess it's been almost 2 years now.
Hmm.
We were out hiking in Kentucky, and we went on this 2-mile hike into the woods that was a path, but unmaintained.
hmm,
And when they say unmaintained, it was very rough.
yeah,
But we were well prepared, and I had my hiking boots and my hiking poles, and we had extra snacks and water and everything. So we thought we were good to go.
yeah,
And we got in the 2 miles, and there was a pretty waterfall. And then we turned around to head back, and my right foot got stuck under a root, and I went down.
yeah.
And I was in a lot of pain, and I thought I wrenched my back and put my shoulder out of joint. And there was nobody around, no cell signal, nothing we could do except hike out. And it took a long, long time,
Ugh,
very painful. We had read that there were bears in the area, so I
ugh,
was afraid about the bears, and read about rattlesnakes, so I was afraid of the rattlesnakes. And it was starting to get dark, and I was worried about that.
oh,
In fact, I was hot, and so my glasses were sweating. I couldn't even wear my glasses, so I could hardly see. I could hardly walk. It was really a horrible time.
I mean, this sounds terribly scary.
It was really scary. And at one point, we kind of got lost, and Matt had to get a compass out to figure out which way we were going, and we had to backtrack because we were going the wrong way. I had to crawl over huge down trees.
Ugh,
Anyway, it's
oh
a
my
very long
gosh.
story. But we finally got to a hospital, and we found out I broke my back and broke my shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no wonder
Holy
I was so much.
mackerel.
So I I couldn't even talk about it for a long time without crying because it was so upsetting.
Yeah,
And then I finally wrote a blog post about it, and that helped a little bit. But I think what really helped was when I made the rug about it.
yeah.
It seemed to just work out a lot of the feelings. And we got out by moonlight that God provided.
Oh
And
boy.
here is his hand. I figured the only way I got out was because he was holding me in his hand.
Yeah.
And so even
Oh,
that rug, I almost didn't put it up on the wall in our camper because I still have such
yeah. I mean,
horrible.
I'm sure it's a horrible association for you whenever you think of that. And it wasn't that long ago. There must be
Right,
such an immediate feeling of panic still thinking about
right.
it.
I still have, pain in my back and
Yeah.
sometimes my shoulder acts up, but I've been back to hiking and am healed up. But I have really mixed emotions about this rug, but it did help me work out some of my feelings. So
Well,
some of the rugs do that for me too.
yeah, I mean, it is. I'm so glad that it was helpful in that way. And at the same time, it is an amazingly beautiful rug.
Well, thank you.
Composition wise, this is just such a standout. Is this something that you did as a painting and then transferred?
Yes, in fact, let's see, where is that? Here it is. It's not nearly as
Okay,
accurate
yeah.
on one. In fact, I got to tell a funny story about this. I was at a rug hooking event at Gail Dufresne's booth and looking for wool. I did want specific wool for the night sky. So I was looking for that. And I had this with me, and a woman stopped and said, "Oh, did your grandchild draw that?" And I'm
Oh,
like, "No, I did."
well, I mean, it's absolutely lovely. It's got all of that emotion in it and very similar colors to what you ended up doing.
Yes, yes. I tried to get, well, I couldn't find anything that was quite this green, but I got close.
You know, I love that you kind of embedded the bear into the hill, and the shape of his body kind of mimics the shape of the hill. It makes me feel like, are you imagining it because it's the hill is a similar shape, like, oh no, is that a bear kind of thing?
Right, right.
It's a
Oh, and I
great
forgot to
piece.
mention that we could hear owls as we were going out, and they didn't scare me. They were kind of comforting. So I had to put an owl in there too.
I love the tumultuous quality of the water at the bottom because
Uh huh.
it's very menacing. I mean, it's a really beautiful cohesive piece, but it doesn't give you a sense of peacefulness. It gives you
Right,
the sense that there's a story here, and you definitely feel the danger. That's certainly one of the first things I think when you look at it, you think, oh, elements of danger. But then that beautiful ray of light coming down off the moon creates kind of a pathway too. So
right.
it seems like there's so much symbolism in it besides being just a great composition. I think you've really relayed. I'm sure you will never be able to relay how you felt when this actually happened, but the elements that you've got in there of the shapes of the trees, the sharp kinds of shapes, there's a lot of contrast between things that are sharp and scary and things that are smooth, like the hand of God and the water and the round hills are familiar and soft. And there's a great contrast of motifs here and such a
Uh-huh.
great clear story. I love that you did the trees in purple.
Yeah, when I that they were the first things I hooked, and I remember somebody was near me, and they're like, "Purple trees," and I'm like, "It was a scary, funky, weird time." So yeah, purple trees.
Yeah, I mean, somehow they stand out more than I think like a black tree would, you know? I think it really draws attention to the wildness and spikiness. Their shape is intimidating and scary. It's not soft and cozy. And it
Yeah.
really like bookends on both sides of you. It's like there you are stuck in the middle, right? Between these scary moments, and then the path under you is lit and the hand has now got you. And yeah, and there's a feeling of safety once you realize that that hand is in place, but until then it's alarming. It looks like a scary scene, a bit of a Nancy Drew moment.
Yeah, yeah, it was very, very scary and very upsetting.
Yeah. Well, this is a
But
great sort of reminder to people that when you have things that you want to think about and work through that are hard to work through, this is a great way to do it through art.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, be so much comfort.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to move on to?
Yeah.
Oh, there's this has a lot of sun to it, so I don't know how that's gonna.
Oh,
There's
we
the
can see it. Yep.
okay,
There is a reflection on it, but I think we
okay,
can still see it.
yeah. This one I call Desert Beauty,
Desert
and
Beauty.
it's a reflection of us hiking in the desert. When Matt and I first got married, I was this Pennsylvania girl, and I was so thrilled when I met him because he said he was from Pennsylvania. And then we got married, and he took me to Arizona. So I didn't like the desert. I thought it was really ugly. And now, as older adult and traveling, I have found a lot of beauty in the desert.
Yeah.
So that's what this was capturing. We were
Wow.
on a hike in Texas, and I saw this lizard. He was pretty much that size and that color. And
Enormous.
I was stalking him trying to get a good photo. And I said, "Oh, I wish you would just stop so I could get a photo." And he climbed up on this rock and stopped. And I got a photo, and then he left. And like, that was perfect.
Yeah, it was just what you ask and you shall receive. There he
Absolutely.
goes.
So I was like, I gotta hook this lizard, and he was really fun. With the sun, it's hard to tell the
Oh,
beautiful colors.
he's absolutely beautiful. His color changes, right? He's in his little body, his little stumpy body. It's you can perfectly tell. There we go. Oh, he's just gorgeous. I love the modeled. I love the colors of his body, but what you're saying about the desert landscape, it is when you're not used to it and you haven't yet, your eye hasn't yet learned to appreciate the beauty. Mine has not yet learned to appreciate the beauty of the West. But when
Uh,
I'm looking at your rugs, I'm looking at all of this color within the one color and thinking, I get what you're saying. There is beauty there, but
Absolutely.
this is so much of you too, using the different colors in all of the shapes. Right there, it reads as sand, but it's so colorful. There's so much more than meets the eye.
Right. Yeah. And of course, I love butterflies, so I had to put a butterfly. And these flowers were called basket flowers, I think,
Ooh,
and they
ooh,
were all over the place. And of course, I love my orange, so I had to put them in there. And then the cacti had fruit, the prickly pear
ooh.
cactus, and so I added that. And then when we lived in Arizona, I never saw a roadrunner, and finally I saw a roadrunner, so I added him. In fact, I'm
Whoa.
teaching a roadrunner class at ATHA this year in Texas.
Oh, how fun. That's the one you're teaching, you said?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
And then this cactus, well, that's not, you can't see it very well with the, does it show up? Well, we'll forget about that. But let's talk about this one. This one's in the shade. Um,
I remember that from Rug Cooking Magazine.
oh
That
yes,
was a
yeah.
great article.
Thank you. We were in North Dakota and near Medora and Theodore Roosevelt National Park,
Uh,
and we had to go for groceries. There's no groceries there by the park or in that town. We had to drive, I think, an hour for groceries, and we were driving back, and there up on the hill with the sunset were these bison buffaloes up there on the hill with these
Whoa.
stripy mountains and the sunset behind them, and it all happened so fast I didn't get a photo, but I knew I had to recreate that memory in a rug.
Wow. When I look at your pieces, this is a great example. And the one below, you do a lot with layers of interest, even if it's vertical, horizontal. In this one, it's like the top has that silhouette sort of realism with the sun. I mean, that you captured the sun so perfectly, the silhouette of the tree. And then down a layer, you've got your classic signature Janine kind of hit or miss mixed color rocks. I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's just, and then down at the bottom, yet another layer, that lush green, sort of summery, springy, all of those many colors of grass and vegetation, layers of interest. It's so interesting. You put so much into every rug. The one below it, too, with the lizards, I noticed down on the bottom, it was more realistic with the storytelling at the bottom with the cacti and the roadrunner, the butterfly,
Uh-huh.
the lizard. And then as you got higher up, it became more graphic and very, very strong, sort of hit or miss striping feel to the rocks, to the sky, to the sun. You seem to change style within one composition, and I think that is an amazingly interesting facet of your work.
Well, for this one, I was working from photos. So I had photos of the lizard, photos of the flowers and everything, and I had photos of these hills. And so I was working from the photos. They are very stripy out there,
Yeah.
and I was really trying to capture that with the. It's interesting to hear you analyze my rugs and what you see in them, because I'm just kind of creating and don't have all those thoughts, and yet you're seeing those things. So that's really cool to
Well, I mean,
hear.
you're a natural artist, right? It's all hardwired in you. So whether you know you're doing stuff or not, you're doing great things, and it's interesting that you're working from photography because I'm getting a sense that like what you just described, that many compositions are composites where you're like,
Yeah.
I'll take the rocks from this and the lizard from that, and you know what you instinctively know in terms of composition what elements you want in there, but you pull from different sources to be able to populate your composition. This goes here, that goes there. That's just something that you naturally do so well.
Well, I took it to an extreme in the next rug.
You're getting lots of
Um,
compliments, by the way. You're getting tons of
oh,
compliments that you're doing. The rugs are breathtaking.
well, thank
People are
you.
loving seeing them.
We're fighting the sun here. I'm going to talk about this one.
Yep,
This one I call Summer Journey,
yep.
and this captured things from 5 different states that we saw that summer.
I
And I
love
remember
that.
saying to Matt, I want to take something from all these different places and put them in one landscape. And he said, you mean put like a vignette here of one place and a vignette here of another place? I said, no, I'm going to make a whole new landscape with all those places in it. And he was a little bit skeptical, but I decided to go for it anyway. So this is our camper home.
Yep.
And then we have 5 states in here. This is Arizona. And we saw a jackrabbit, which was really cool. And there was a rattlesnake that went like 5 feet away from me when I was sitting
Oh,
outside. And this is supposed to be the Rocky Mountains.
yep.
And we saw this moose in the Rocky Mountain National Park.
Oh, wow.
This is California, where there's these old trees. They're about 4,000 years old. They're called
Bristlecone.
bristlecone pine trees, and they're short and gnarly, and you have to hike up to 10,000 feet to see them. And
Holy
I just
mackerel.
fell in love with them. They almost look dead, but they have a little bit of green leaves.
Gosh, it
Um,
looks like an ancient tree, doesn't it?
oh, they are ancient, and they look kind of ugly, but I thought, well, they show their age,
Yeah,
but
I
they're
think it looks.
tenacious and hanging in there.
Oh, I think it's just beautiful. It looks like a nice old mature tree.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is Utah with Delicate Arch
Yeah.
in Arches National Park. These were petroglyphs that were about, I think, 8,000 years old, and they were in Utah, not in Colorado at the Rocky National Park, but I put them on those hills anyway. And then this is no, I can't remember, Chimney Rock
Chimney Rock in
in
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Oh, wow.
I like to think of myself as an explorer, and the pioneers on the westward trek would be coming across the plains, and it was flat, 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 and then all of a sudden they would see this, and it was like a landmark for them to know they were in the right place.
Oh, that
So,
is so neat.
and there we are hiking.
I love that you're in there, and I love that you're in silhouette. And then there's the comet over on the right.
Yeah, we saw Comet Neowise,
Oh,
and so
wow.
I had to put that in there. So this is kind of my nighttime sky.
Yeah.
We saw the sunset that looked just like that in,
Wow.
I think it
That was
was
Rocky Mountain.
Rocky Mountain National Park. So I put that between that, and this is supposed to be a daytime sky
Yeah.
with, we saw a rainbow, which
Canyon
I,
Lands.
I have mixed feelings about that rainbow too, because my brother was really, really sick. And I saw the rainbow and thought it meant that he was going to get better, but
Oh,
he did pass away.
oh
So
no, I'm
I,
so
I,
sorry.
I have a love-hate relationship with that rainbow, but it
Uh,
was pivotal, so I put it in there.
yeah. It's amazing how much symbolism you've got in that rug, and yet it is a super cohesive rug to look at. It has so much storytelling in it, that the added layer of interest, the journey between the states. You have so much in there, but it doesn't read as busy and chaotic. Your eye does just what art wants your eye to do: wander around. What you're walking in from the left with the two of you into the story. It has a fantasy quality to it. Maybe the
Mm,
colors, um,
uh-huh.
maybe the composition, but it is just an absolutely epic work. I just
Well,
love this.
thank you.
I'm trying to remember if I saw this in rug hooking or if somebody used it in a book project.
It was in celebration, and
Okay.
then it was one of the people choices. So then it was in the magazine as one of the people's choices.
Is this the
And
kind of
I,
oh, I would hope it would be everybody's choice. Is this the kind of project that as you're going along you think, "Oh, but wait a minute, there was also this," and then you're able to work that in as well?
no, actually, I had this completely designed before I started hooking. But it is one of those where, like I hooked the arch and then I hooked the next thing and thought, well, that's not working. But Matt told me just keep going. And so I did.
There's something so large about the shape of the mountains and the sort of opposite shape of the clouds on top of the mountains, like mimicking but in mirror. There's something so
Uh-huh.
grand about the way that this piece is framed out. And I love the way that on the left hand side of the grass, the fill has a little bit more of a rainbow feel than on the right under the night sky. I feel
Uh-huh.
like I see more colors in your grass on the side on the left with the cacti.
Well, I was trying to go from desert over here
Yep.
into grassiness of the Rocky Mountains, and that was challenging too, to try to go from desert colors to grass. And so, yeah, you've spied it. There's definitely a difference there.
It's just such an interesting piece. It's such an inspiration. Yeah, the colors
Thank
are
you.
amazing and
Well,
very
I
in
do love
keeping.
color.
Yep, very in
I mean,
keeping
even
with your style
purple in
of
the moon.
adding multiple of the same color. You get such an effect.
I think it adds some depth too.
It absolutely does. It adds a lot of interest. And sometimes you don't know, you're looking at something, it has a special quality, you don't know what it is, and it doesn't matter if you can think of the word or the language for it. It just makes you feel a certain way. And that piece has
Okay.
so much of that. All of your pieces are grand, but that is just like the ultimate storytelling piece. It's got so much happening.
Well, this one has a lot happening too. How are you doing, Matt, with the sun? And he's fighting
I
all
know
kinds of
you've got
stuff.
your hand up. It must be exhausting.
I'm all right.
Okay.
This one has several states in it too. When we first went to Yellowstone, how many years ago was that?
8.
8 years ago. They hand you a pamphlet with a map, and it had all these animals on there. And I said, I don't want to leave this park until I see every one of these animals.
Oh
And
boy.
of course, we didn't see every animal, even though we were there 2 weeks. We saw a lot, but we never saw the mountain goats or the bighorn sheep. And so we've been looking for them for years and years and years. And finally, this year, we saw them.
Oh wow.
So this bison was in North Dakota.
Yep.
This one was on Pikes Peak in Colorado, and they were in
Custer
South
State Park.
Dakota at Custer State Park.
Oh,
He was in West Virginia, and there's a story behind every animal too. And we were in Custer State Park driving along, and all of a sudden, this lithe, beautiful animal just flowingly crossed the road in front of us, and it was a mountain lion. And it happened
wow.
so fast that I didn't get a photo.
Oh
But we
wow.
went to a museum, and there was one stuffed, and I got a photo of him. So
Oh, that's
I added
perfect.
him.
That is a
And then
beautiful
that
park.
year, that year Matt did skydiving. He's wanted to do it. It's like been on his bucket list ever since we got married.
Okay.
How many years ago?
41.
41 years ago. And he we were sometimes we stay with what they call a boondocker's place. There's not any water or electricity or anything, but they let you stay there. Well, this place was a skydiving school.
Wow.
And as we were getting there, he said, do you think I would be able to skydive? I didn't make an appointment ahead of time or anything. And he's making excuses not to do it. And I said, look, we're not getting any younger. It's like, do it now or don't talk about it anymore. So he did it. And he loved it, which
Good
was
job, Matt.
amazing. So
That sounds so scary.
I had a blast. I enjoyed it. I had no problem jumping out I mean, I had a guy strapped to my back that had the parachute, but I had no trouble jumping out the airplane. I was just waiting to do that. It was so much fun.
He
Oh, I'm
loved
so
it.
glad. I'm so glad it went that well. And yeah.
So it doesn't really fit with all the animals and stuff, but it's my memory, so it's in there.
It's part of that story. Now, the animals that you chose, are you recreating that brochure in your mind?
No, these were actually photos I took of these animals in that year.
Yep.
So it was one summer again, and I saw these animals. In fact,
Wow.
this one was so cute. We were in Custer State Park
Yeah.
on the Needles Highway, and we didn't know if our truck, we have a huge truck, if it would fit through the tunnel because the tunnels get smaller and smaller and narrower and narrower. So we stopped, and I said, well, I want to hike above the tunnel and see what I might be missing if we don't go through.
Yeah.
And we got up there, and he's like, Janine, there's mountain goats. And there they were. There were two adults and two babies, and I got this photo, and it was just a really cool experience. So
This is, I mean, it's so perfect. You got these great photos, and the one that was missing was the mountain lion, and then you saw that one stuffed. So you mean you it's like a collection, and you've got them,
exactly. And
yeah, all pieced
I,
together.
I was stretching myself with these. I had read that it doesn't matter what color you use, as long as you get the value right, it
Yep.
will read correctly. So I tried to put as many purples and other colors in these animals as I could to see if it would still, like, I used mostly purple in here, but
Yeah.
when you step back and look at it, he looks like a gray animal.
Wow.
And that was really fascinating to me.
Now, I mean, this is remarkable. When you're looking at your photo, oh, that's incredible. That's you've got a lot of color in there. When you're looking at the photograph, do you use any tools like that red screen or anything like that to identify values, or you just trust your eye?
No, at the beginning I would change them maybe to black and white,
Yep.
but now I pretty much just trust my eye. Except for my self-portrait, I did do more with that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I
that
mean,
piece is just now. What's the name of the piece with the animals?
that's called untamed because these were all wild animals, and it also reflects to me our lifestyle that we're kind of untamed.
You're getting wilder and wilder as time goes on, by the
I
sound
think
of it.
so. We you can't control us anymore. We're out of control.
Oh my gosh. And now here comes another gorgeous wall. Now, what kind of size are these?
These are most of them, except the one at the bottom, are 18 by 18.
Wow. So the portrait of you is 18 by 18.
Yes.
Gosh, and you got that kind of detail.
Well, up to this point, I had only done those little faces, and they were very hard to do anything. So I figured if I was going to do a face, first of all, I thought I better do myself. That way, if it doesn't end up looking like me, nobody else will be mad.
Yeah.
And then I thought it's got to be large to be able to get, the detail in there.
Is that image all right, or do I need to flip it back?
It went vertical.
She likes it horizontal.
There we go.
There we go. Great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Matt.
And I don't know if this is the one we want to talk about now, but with this one, let me get my sketchbooks.
That one is that's another great showstopper. And when people see it, you get so many comments. Everybody is just in awe of not just the detail, but it has such a feel to it, right? It's not like a dry portrait. It's got your beloved butterflies in there. There's something about it. It has an extra quality, like so much of your work. It's not just beautifully executed. There's like a magical, elusive quality about it, that would be impossible to, not that we would want to copy, but when people see something like that, it's like, oh gosh, I would love to do something like that, but how do you do something like that? It's such a personal piece, and your approach is very personal. I mean, you do teach, and I'm sure you're very forthcoming with tips and helping people. But this piece is something else. This is a very personal piece. It's a self portrait.
Exactly. And when I was hooking it, I was reading, actually, I read the Hooking Faces book, which really was helpful.
Yeah.
And, looked at some other things and listened to people, and they were all saying, keep the background very plain so that it doesn't detract from the portrait.
Yeah.
And first of all, I had done this sketch in my sketchbook.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't even planning to do myself. It was just I wanted to try a face,
Oh,
and I did this sketch,
I
and
love it. It's very different, but I love that too.
I love flowers and butterflies, so I put that all over her and had fun with it. And then I thought, I wonder if I could actually do a face. So I tried myself in my sketchbook, working from a photo.
Holy mackerel. That
So
is so good. And you've done the same thing there where you are like in detail, in good detail, but in the background, you've kind of abstracted and obscured the background a little bit so that people don't focus so much on what's over your shoulder.
Right. Well, the in photography they call that bokeh,
Okay.
where the background is kind of like out of focus and you
Yeah.
can't tell what it is.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's the effect I was going for, which I'm not really good at watercolor and didn't know what I was doing, but kind of had fun doing it
Oh, I
anyway.
think that's a striking piece.
Well, thank you. But I kind of worked up to doing it in hooking. Then I took my photo and I put it in. I think it's Bicasa is
Okay.
the app,
Yep.
and you could change it to posterization,
Okay.
and there were different styles of that, and that helped bring out all the different values in my face.
That's a
So
great tip. Sometimes
yeah,
people don't, not everybody is technical, but there are apps that are for people who are not uber technical that will help you just do one or two things that you struggle with or that you find like your Achilles heels stuff. It's fun to find things. So that one was called, what did you think that one was called? The program?
instead of Picasa, it's Becasso,
Okay.
Bicasa. And that, so I kind of went in steps
Yeah.
of approaching this. And I do not dye wool. I knew I needed good flesh tone wool, so I asked Michelle Maccarelli to
Yeah.
dye it. She did.
Yep.
And actually, I had to just trust her because when it came, I thought there aren't enough different values. I'm usually very contrasty in my hooking, and I thought there wasn't going to be enough contrast to bring out the features. But as I was using them, I was like, wow, this is magical. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, a nose appeared, and it actually looks 3D.
Yeah. Yeah. She's
So
excellent at that.
yeah, she really is.
I really love how I love the composition. I love how realistic you are, and I love the sort of flatness and it's more of a pattern driven background. So it's not distracting. But I love that you use particularly on the right corner, right, the right top corner, that you use that kind of organic the stem with the little flowers that was in your first watercolor
Right,
because you
right.
had that like underneath you on the first watercolor. And I thought, oh, isn't that different? It almost looks like something that's pressed, or, and then you used almost that same motif here, and it works really well. You needed something kind of light in that corner, balanced out on the bottom left, and then you've got that. You've done the good DLDB with the nice bright blue flowers. Now, do
Mhm.
butterflies symbolize something specific for you, or you just love to see them?
Well, I've always loved them, and I love that they kind of symbolize transformation, which is what I named this one because they start as this kind of ugly worm, and well, some of the worms are pretty too, and then they go through this cocoon or chrysalis and end up this beautiful butterfly. So to me, it kind of means like we go through several things in our life, and we just keep emerging as something beautiful on the other side. So they kind of mean that to me. And also, there was one time where I was really upset about something, and I was walking outside, and I said, Lord, I wish I could feel your hug right now and feel your presence because I don't feel it, and I just feel alone and very upset. And immediately, one of these butterflies came, a tiger
Oh,
swallowtail came and like flew up to my face, and I kept walking, and it flew with me for a long time,
oh,
and I took that as God's hug. So
oh.
uh,
That
I've
sounds
always loved
perfect.
I've always loved butterflies and taken a lot of photos. So these are all from my photos of butterflies, and I have more to do. So I'm kind of working on a butterfly series,
That's
and
a great series.
I call her Butterfly Girl.
Butterfly
So
girl. Now I love the way that now that you described the bokeh thing because I don't know anything about photography. I
mhm.
do see in some cases you do one thing your main motif in like in great realism, and then in the background you kind of lay off and leave things a little bit more graphic. I think that's an
Yes.
amazing effect. And in this
Well,
close up that Matt's showing us, we're seeing all of those blues, the one on the right in the background, all of those greens. These are great examples of the principles that you've described to us.
yes, and in this one you can see I'm using all kinds of fibers. It's all wool in the butterfly, And then I start adding some other fibers, some velvet.
Oh yeah.
There's there's yarn, there's silk yarn. Everything I can think of is added in there.
Oh, it's so glorious. It really is just stunning. Just stunning. I want to catch you up on some of the comments too. When we were
Okay.
talking earlier, and I said, "Oh, your work has this magic layer, this elusive quality." Linda B in New Jersey said it's joy, like capital,
Oh,
all capital letters. And when she
oh,
wrote that, I thought that sounds right. That fits.
oh, that thrills me. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, that really does make sense. And Elaine wrote and said, and we will do this at the end. I hope you give the cameraman his moment in the
Yeah.
light before you end the session. And I'm prejudiced too because he's my brother. We will do that,
Oh,
Elaine, for sure.
Oh, Elaine.
Elaine
Hi,
oh,
Elaine.
Dawson. Oh, I love this butterfly series, and I love Butterfly Girl. These are really so striking. What are the two on the bottom? I haven't seen those yet.
this one I call Compass Rose, and that
Oh,
was in Rug Cooking Magazine as an article. But I've always loved reading adventure stories and looking at old maps. And on old maps, they're usually very yellowed, and they always have what they call a compass rose,
yeah.
where they have the north, south, east, west, but then they also illustrate it and draw pretty things around it. So I wanted to capture our adventurous spirit by making this rug, and I call it True North. Like as long as we're kind of following our inclinations of where to go, we'll be heading to True North. So
Wow. That I mean, even that has a great story behind it, and it's so much of you. There's so much of you in every rug. Everything seems to be so thoughtfully chosen. For
yeah.
and considering that you work in a way that you sometimes have to make compromises or make things work, you're very thoughtful about the way that you work.
Well, thank you. I will never draw another one of these though, because straight lines and I don't get along, and that
Yeah.
you have to have that just perfect for that to work.
It's so romantic with it being the compass rose, but also the idea of it being a bit yellowed like an old map. It's so romantic. And the true north, and the north is a little bit bigger than the other letters. It's like that in itself is like just a great front page for like if your life is a book, this is like on the first page. I mean, it's just a perfect introduction to the way that you live, and not just in terms of like traveling and all that, but just your life philosophy.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun one to make, and it was a little bit of a stretch for me too. I wanted it to look kind of old and yellowed, and as you know, with my other rugs, I'm usually very vibrant colors, so that was a stretch for me to do.
I'm glad you stuck with it, and it has a more limited color palette, but it still reads as being very colorful because all of those browns around the compass rose, and then the sort of rose petals behind the compass symbol. It's very
Uh-huh.
colorful in there.
Well, I couldn't do something not colorful.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then as different as it can be over on the right, yep,
Uh-huh.
it's completely different composition.
Yeah, this one I was out here in Illinois visiting our family, and we have seven grandchildren altogether, and we have four here in Illinois, and it's big farming country. And so I was out here, and whenever I'm here, the kids want to do art with Nini. I'm called Nini, short for
Oh,
Janine. And so we always do art together. And so I was just drawing very simplistic things while they were watching. And I thought, you know what? I should do something farming related since they're out here in the farming country. And, it just seems like the breadbasket of America.
yeah.
So I put the flag as the hills and added the barn. And then, of course, I had to put a sheep in there for rug hooking. So,
This is still the composite type of composition that you do, putting in the bits and pieces, and it always is very cohesive. It always fits together. Your compositions are just so excellent. The way that things are weighted and balanced you're just so good at that. It's just incredible because you've got a quite low sun happening, but all of those rays so colorful and so much
Yeah, well, that
patterning.
was partially just using what I had in
Yep.
that sun, and it worked. So,
Yep. So you had a little bit of the orange. You've got your orange in there,
oh yeah.
and you use what you've got. And what happens when you, for example, run out of a color you love like orange?
Well, as you can see, I just used a bunch of different things. So I rarely am so attached to one color being in one spot that if I run out of it, it would be a bad thing. Now, it would have been a bad thing with the red because I didn't mix that up, but I could have. I could
Yep.
have had several reds in there.
Yep. It adds a
So,
lot of weight to it right in the middle where it needs to be because there's a lot going on below and a lot going on above. So the
uh-huh.
flag, I think, being a very solid, weighty element, is very, very strong, and it looks like hills, right? As I'm sure that's not a
Right.
accident. But
Yeah.
you're so clever with your color placement too because you don't have that much orange, and maybe you ran out of the orange, but your use of purple right next to the orange gives the impression that there's a lot more orange there.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Like I said, a lot of it is I'm just kind of winging it. And so it's very interesting to hear what you say about it.
Yeah, you make amazing decisions. That is
Well,
just a
thank
gorgeous
you.
piece.
Well, we have one more. Are we almost out of time or are we
No,
okay?
we're good.
Okay. We have one more piece over here. I call this Enjoy Life. And this was pretty early on too. And I just wanted to design a rug that had a lot of the things that I love. And I love riding my bike, so I had to put my bike in there.
Hmm.
I love having a good mug of tea in the morning. I love the sunshine. Matt says I'm solar powered. And if the sun's not there for a while, I don't do so well. I love to have my dark chocolate. I love butterflies. And this is called Nini flower. I guess whenever I was doodling with the kids or drawing I always drew this flower, so they actually named it the Nini flower.
Oh,
And my granddaughters are now 14 and 12, and we were drawing on something yesterday, and they said, Janine, or Nini, you didn't draw a Nini flower. So they're still talking about it.
now
And then
the
go
the
ahead.
blue. No, go ahead. The robins,
Yeah, these are bluebirds. When we
bluebirds.
did have our house, we had a bluebird house, and I think we still had our house at this point. And I loved those bluebirds. And I look at this as me and the three boys. I know exactly which boy is which, which bird is which boy. And then Daddy is up here. He's off at work.
Oh,
And then on the tree, I have a heart with M and J for Matt and Janine.
oh,
And here I am, just happy with life. And I've made jewelry for a long time, so I put a piece of jewelry on there.
oh! Wow! Oh gosh, that
Oh, and this
is.
this we forgot this. This is a rug hook, my Hartman hook that wasn't bent at the time, and some these are lifted up a little bit. The loops there.
Absolutely beautiful. And you've whipped it with wool strips, like like
Yes.
yep.
Yep.
Wow, that is
And that's
such a good
my
effect.
my YouTube video is about is whipping with wool strips, which I did that at the beginning because I couldn't find wool yarn in the colors I wanted. And then I kind of settled on just using black wool yarn. So I don't whip with the strips anymore, but it's entirely possible and a really cool effect.
Wow, that is a gorgeous piece. Now, the piece that's hanging underneath it, is that something you're working on now, or is that like a sampler?
This is when I was down in Florida for several years. I taught a beginner's class at the RV park. And this was just a piece I had out that once I showed them how to pull loops, they could practice on it.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So
that
I
is.
just have it displayed at the library for people here that don't have a clue what rug hooking is. They can look at it and kind of see some of it.
Wow, that is really, really handy. Now, the show, how long has it been up? It's got one more week to go.
I think it's been up 2 weeks. This was, we only come and visit for, well, this was one of our longer times, about a month and a half.
Yeah.
And my daughter-in-law only thought of it kind of when we were into it. So, what, you want me to go over here?
No.
um, so there's more sunshine over here, I think.
Okay, well, wherever.
Well, now the sun keeps finding me. Anyway, so we got it up as soon as we could, and you were asking about how it was displayed.
Yep.
The library actually had these lattices and all these clips and stuff, and it just worked really good to use like either these clips or um, clothespins to clip it on
Wow.
the lattice. And that's what they do with quilts and their artwork that they display.
That looks amazing. Now, when we logged on the other day just to practice to be sure that we knew what to do,
Uh-huh.
somebody stopped and talked to you during that time. Now, have you
Okay.
spent bits and pieces of time there while your exhibit's been up?
Yes, actually, there was one woman who lived 2 hours away.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 hours away. She contacted me on Facebook and said, I can't come because I had one time where I came and demonstrated, but I can't come during the demonstration. But I want to come and see it. And I said, well, let me know when you're coming.
Mhm.
I'll come in and visit with you. And so she did. She drove 2 hours to see it, and I came in and we spent a lovely time together talking about being artists and uh, quieting those thoughts in our head that tell us we can't just do it and just do it anyway.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And then I did have a time where I came and demonstrated, and I think I got to show rug hooking to about 10 people. So that was really fun.
Yeah, there's something so warm and kind and approachable about you because your work
Oh,
is so good that I could see somebody who's a beginner going, "Ooh, that makes me a little nervous. I don't think that I have that in me." But there is something about you that is so warm, and I can see people coming to the exhibit or watching you hook like the other day and approaching and learning more. But there's something very relaxing about your personality and your demeanor that you seem like a great face for the craft, a great sort of calling card for the
oh,
craft.
well, thank you.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
you're welcome. Do you think that you'll do more of these? I mean, this went so well, and the fact that the space was available, and I guess the good thing about it is it's there, but the bad thing about it was it didn't have a lot of time to be publicized or advertised.
Right, right. Yeah, I would definitely do it again. I
Yeah.
felt like it was just super amazing to um, have place to display it that wasn't just a rug hooking show or rug hooking event
Yeah.
or even a fiber event
Yeah.
because it was reaching people that have never heard about it before. So I really give kudos to the Newton Library and Jackie who has allowed us to be here and do this. It's just been a really cool experience.
It's I have to say a huge thanks to the library as well because they're not open right now, and it was
No,
so
and
kind of them to open for this.
yeah, I told you that I didn't think it was going to work out because the library was closed. And I talked to Jackie, and she's like, "Oh, I'll come and open it up for you." So we have
Thank
the
you,
place
Jackie.
to ourselves.
That is remarkably kind. Everything dovetailed to work out. Now I'm looking over your shoulder at the butterfly series. You're still working on the butterfly series, and do you
Yeah,
have any other series in mind?
not at this time. Last summer, we had an amazing travel summer. We saw 9 national parks
Wow.
um, and Monument Valley, which is not a national park. And I have not done a rug about it. In fact, I haven't even drawn anything about it. I think I was so oversaturated by so much beauty that I'm not sure what to do about it. But I would like to do another travel rug, hopefully capturing some of that trip. And I just have still several butterflies to do. And as you know, each rug takes quite a while to do.
Yeah.
And I've only been rug hooking for 9 years. So I still have a lot of time, hopefully. And yeah, I'm not sure about another series, but still have a lot of butterflies to do.
Yeah, you do. I'm sure. I mean, these are just gorgeous, and each one is so different, right? It's not like, oh, I mean, each one is its own. It is its own universe. It's really stunning. I
And
can't.
they just happy.
Yeah, they are. It's more joy, and I love how everything that you do has so much of you in it, and the
Mhm.
storytelling is so dense and layered. It's like there's so much. This is a perfect thing to have done on a Friday night, just to be able to hear the stories. And I remember reading about the pieces in Rug Hooking magazine, the ones that I've seen, but hearing you talk about things is adds so much interest and is so much more personal, than words can be. it's so interesting, and people making comments. Your work is excellent. You're an excellent rug hooker. I love the detail. I love the stories. It's very calming. It's yeah, you're getting beautiful comments to
Oh,
reflect, yeah, your demeanor and your work. It's so lovely. It's so striking, and it's interesting. It's interesting for me because I'm not a technical person at all, but I have a lot of art training, and I tend to look at things in too much detail, and sometimes it spoils stuff. It's
mm,
like once you like the Wizard of Oz effect. Once
right.
you take the curtain away, it's. But with your work, it works opposite. When you said at the beginning how you were adding like colors together, I'm just kind of recapping and filling an area because you don't have infinite of each possible shade. You're taking, for example, a lot of greens, the butterfly behind you, and putting
Mhm.
them together, and then we get that beautiful effect where you're able to use many different shades of the same color, different tones, different actual colors, but they go together and they harmonize, and the effect, the takeaway for your eye is, hey, it's green, but it's
Right.
interesting, let me look some more. So that's one of your great techniques. And then the idea, the way that you use some of these computer programs that you mentioned, a couple of them, that's really helpful for people. And I appreciate you being so forthcoming and saying, naming the names of things, because I have not figured any of that stuff out. But people will say, what can you use? A lot of
Right.
people are better than I am at the technical stuff. What can you use? And I never know the answer for that. So the fact that you mentioned a couple of things is really helpful for people who are a bit more tech savvy, thinking, "Ooh, I would like to do something with faces and Picasso, or what was
Right.
it? Something like
Be
that.
awesome. Yeah.
Could be the right thing." And I loved you talking about that idea of boca, because I've never heard that word except for boca burgers, which are like the vegetarian, right, that we eat all the time. But boca in the context of photography, I've never heard that before, and it makes perfect sense. Like something in the foreground being like in focus and something somewhere else being out of focus has, like, for me, different connotations looking at fine art, because I'm not a photography person. It all makes sense in your work, the using photographs, the creating composites, the doing this you do very elaborate storytelling, but you manage to put all of the jigsaw pieces together in a way that's not confusing or chaotic. It's just like a charmed composition every time, and that's just raw talent. That's
You're
not
gonna make
something you
my
can
head
learn.
burst, Yana.
Well, you deserve it. You deserve it. Now, are you the kind of person, and I'll stop because I know you must be getting tired, but do you have a thing where sometimes you feel like looking at your photographs, sometimes you feel like taking photographs, sometimes you feel like working on watercolors, and sometimes you feel like hooking? Or do you go beginning to end every time you create something new?
No, there's definitely I take way too many photos, and they're not, each one of them doesn't get made into a rug. And um, like I'm working on a piece right now that is for Rug Hooking Magazine, so I can't put that on Facebook. And I love to put progress pictures. It seems to help me to have everybody's input and just keeps me going. I think especially since we are on the road and I don't have friends and community around me all the time.
Yeah.
It's helpful to get all that input from Facebook people. So I always try to be working in my sketchbooks and playing around with paint and constantly trying new things and learning. And so I'll put those pictures up too. So I bounce, and then I make jewelry, and I bounce around between all those things. I just have to be making something all the time.
Idle hands, right?
Yeah.
Kirsten made the comment that this is such an inspiring collection, and the monarch with the pink flowers is one of her top 10 rugs of all time. She said, I think I
Oh,
gasped when I saw that the first time.
oh wow, thank you.
Yeah, it is such a beautiful piece. Now, I don't want to end quite yet because I think we do want to thank Matt as well. But
Yes,
can we at least end this part by looking at the happy camper one more time?
sure. And here's the guy.
Hello, thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Partners in crime, right?
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
I wouldn't be able to do what I do without him. He's a constant encouragement and support, and of course he makes all the money so that I can do all these cool things.
Well, I mean, it's a relationship that works so well. You have such adventures together. You
Absolutely.
do what you need to do for your spirit, for your happiness, and he seems so supportive of
Uh,
everything that you
he's he's
do.
that, he's more wonderful than you can imagine.
Oh, oh,
Oh, and
I'm so happy for
these,
you both.
I don't know if you can see this, but he makes these name tags, and they're on our Etsy store too.
I noticed that. That's a great thing for people who go to meetings and guild meetings and all that and don't have a tag. That's really good to know because they also have yours has a little sheep on it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I noticed that earlier. I thought
we
that
have
is really
rug hook
handy.
on them.
Yeah, that
I
is really
started.
handy. So before we close, I want to just remind everybody your Etsy shop is there. You haven't worked on your blog for a while, but you might get back to that when the time is right and the
Yes.
stars align and all of that. And I just also want to remind everybody that you'll be at ATHA this year, right at the Texas ATHA, and you're teaching the Roadrunner.
Yes.
Yeah, that I mean
Yeah.
that is. Am I missing anything? And do you want to say anything before we end?
Well, I just want to thank you for having us. This has been really fun,
Oh,
and
sure thing. I
you're
mean, I feel like it was such a gift
uh,
that, when I saw the exhibit up, I thought, oh, how is this ever going to work? But you all are really technical. Matt, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
You are, I mean, not everybody's willing to try going online. It's, as we saw 1 minute before the show started, it doesn't always work the way it worked the last time, and it can be fraught with
yeah, that was
stress.
a little stressful, but
Yeah,
it
it
worked.
was. It's often stressful for me, even when I'm by myself and the
I'm
dashboard's different and
sure.
you don't know why, and nothing else has, there's no moving parts. It's just different and it's not working.
Right.
But you all were very brave about taking it on, and I think it's, there's people watching live now, but there will be hundreds of people who watch by tomorrow, and then all of these great stories can carry over. I think this is a super inspirational episode, having you here and having you tell the stories, and you've explained everything in such, again, like a forthcoming way. You're not keeping lots of secrets. You're saying, this is what I do, this is how I figure it out, this is the product, this is a challenge. I don't even want to say anything ever went wrong, but things that are challenging, you figure out how to overcome those challenges, and you just keep moving forward. There's been a lot of good inspirational takeaways from this episode, so I
Oh,
really appreciate having you on.
well, thank you so much. It was really fun. I enjoyed telling the stories, and I just want to thank you too for all you do with for the rug hooking community with your awesome Facebook group and your store, and now the new magazine and your
Yeah,
book. I loved your book.
thank you.
So it's you are very forthcoming too, and I think the more we can inspire people, the better all of us do. So I thank you for what you do too.
Thank you so much. This is such a small craft that people who are invested in it as much as you and I are, and a million other people, but not a million, that's the problem. You can't be in scarcity mode, right? You have to share, otherwise the craft dies. It's not a large
Absolutely.
enough craft to be able to keep secrets and try to get edges. You have to be, if you are visible in this craft, I think you have to be the kind of a person who shares and reaches out as often as possible. That's what's so great about the library thing, is you're catching people walking by who you don't even know. Somebody might have come and gone today and gone home and tried to figure out how to get started, right? And you don't know how many lives you touch and how many people you sort of enable and get started, get a little fire lit under them. You just don't know. You can't measure, but you have to hope and assume that everybody who saw the exhibit took away something, even if it was just some moments of like peacefulness and calm and inspiration. And maybe some people took away some practical ideas and tips and whatever. But it's so great that it's there, and a just huge reminder to everybody to check your local libraries, historical societies, town halls, all these public spaces where they might be looking for beautiful exhibits, something different, right? Because it is a thing to hang it and all of that, and that all needs to be figured out. And everything like that is always a hassle. But at the end of the day, doesn't it feel great to have your exhibit hanging up?
Oh, absolutely. And I never would have thought to ask. So I just wanted to tell people just to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. They can say no. It's no reflection on us or on rug hooking. But, if we just ask more, who knows what'll happen.
That's right. That's right. Never try, never win.
That's right.
Well, I wish everybody a very happy weekend. You've got lots of thanks, lots of kind remarks, and thank you to everybody who's been viewing tonight.
Thank
And
you all.
thank you all. I will be back with you on Monday for coffee time at noon Eastern Standard Time. And in the meantime, everybody have a great weekend, and hopefully we will both see you soon. Take
Yeah.